9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, I almost said good morning. I guess to some of you it may be morning yet, but hello to all of you. Good afternoon. I'm constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, and welcome to this week's episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. This is week, I think it's actually 44. I just realized that my slideshow says 43. I think I don't know how to count. I'm pretty sure this is week 44 that we've done this year. At any rate, this topic is our final constitutional review of Michigan and Florida proposals and candidates. Even if you are not in one of those two states, number one, Michigan and Florida are super important to how things happen all over the country in terms of elections and policies and everything else. But also, hopefully the discussions today that are just more of a recap in nature, hopefully touching on all these subjects will help you to figure out what to look for on your ballot if you're in a different state. So with that being said, whoops, it's skipping me all over the place here. All right, so again, this is final constitutional review of Michigan and Florida statewide candidates and ballot proposals. See, I got the number correct on this side. This is Restore Freedom Weekly, episode 44. And I wanted to get you to think, are you just going to vote straight party ticket and call it good and walk out of there? Or do you prefer, at least at this point, to vote specifically for the proposals and candidates that best support the Constitution and our God-given liberties? So here today, we're going to be boiling down many hours of discussions in the recent months to hopefully just a 1-hour summary. And of course, Michigan and Florida, two of the most important states in elections. We're going to talk about which statewide candidates and proposals to vote for. And with that being said, let's see if I'm smart enough to get back to my comment area so I could see. Let's see, we have our first comment on Facebook today. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Just so you guys know, with the platform we use here for streaming, if you have any symbols, any emojis, things like that, certainly like if it's a flag symbol or something like that, I can't actually see that in your comments. It comes through as random gibberish and letters, and I try to do my best to decipher what you might be trying to get across there, but all right, so with that being said, so today, our True or False Tuesday question: only official election challengers and poll watchers can file challenges or complaints about suspicious election activities. Now, I'm not going to give you, well, maybe I'll end up doing it, but I wasn't planning on giving you point blank an answer with an hour full of discussion explaining it and making it easy for you like I normally do on Tuesdays. But we will go over this, and it's something at this point, if you've been watching during this whole season, then hopefully you already know the answer. But I do encourage you to go ahead, jump over on Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, YouTube, on our community page, or on our website, restorefreedomkh.com, where you can go and answer today's true or false question and participate and let us know. Answering those helps us gauge the kinds of information that would be helpful, the kinds of things our audience already knows, and helps us to fine-tune future topics that we need to talk about as well, or hit on more. So again, even though I know that some of you live all over the country, Texas, California, New Hampshire, you name it, and I appreciate those of you who support me from those states as well. Today, the topical focus is on this final constitutional review is on several statewide candidates, 3 constitutional ballot proposals in Michigan, and again in Florida on several statewide candidates, and also 3 constitutional ballot proposals. So what's so important that we need to start the conversation off with? Well, the basics. We need to start with the basics, as we have been doing in many of our episodes in one form or another. We, the people, created our Constitution and thereby created our very form of government. You can look at the U.S. Constitution preamble, state constitution preambles, and certainly the Declaration of Independence, if you're wondering where I get that from. And we need to remember in all of these topics, right, every single one of them, the ballot proposals we're thinking of and discussing today, which candidates would be good for attorney general or governor or state Supreme Court, or, in any of these other seats, even your local offices. We need to remember the basics to know what to listen for and how to discern which candidates are truly going to support the Constitution. Don't go straight party ticket. This coming from someone who was on the Michigan Republican Party State Committee until I moved down here. So this is, I don't say this as someone who's just always been on the outside and looking in, the kid pouting in the corner because he's left out or something like that. I say this as someone who believes that the Republican Party's stance and platform, by and large, has always been one of supporting and defending the Constitution and our God-given liberties, but the individual people running with that R behind their name don't always uphold those values. So it's not a clear just run in there and check the R box. We can't do that anymore, people. So at any rate, as part of that discernment process, some of these basics that we need to remember is that we get our rights from God, not the government. Don't ever forget that. It's something that we have forgotten a little by little, every day, every week, every month, every year, every generation. It's more and more put in the back of our mind and then forgotten about. We get our rights from God, not the government. And of course, you can look at the U.S. Constitution preamble or the Michigan or Florida Constitution preambles, the Declaration of Independence, the 9th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, or provisions like Michigan's Article 1, Section 23, when we're talking about oh my gosh, all my words just escaped me. What's the term? Not written down, not listed rights. That's the first time that's ever happened to me. It starts with a U. At any rate, it's that same provision is okay, that's going to bother me. 9th Amendment. Here we go, people. 9th Amendment, unenumerated. There we go. Unenumerated rights. I guess even I forget about words in the Constitution sometime that we should. Oh, I see Lori commenting on there. Thanks, Lori. So anyway, other states have that in their constitutions, like Florida does as well. I just don't remember the exact portion. It might still be Article 1, Section 23, but I don't remember for sure. So something that's important to consider, and this is a big one, because although I'll get into who I think the Michigan AG pick should be for you next week when you vote, Matt DePerno overall has been the main grassroots candidate for freedom, right? But one of the things I just happened to read, I'm still on the newsletter for the Kent County GOP from West Michigan, from when I was a member. And I was reading the news you can use at the end, where several articles that the chair puts together before sending this out. And one of them was actually focusing on Matt DePerno and Dana Nessel, the Democrat, of course, who's the incumbent, each of their takes on the abortion issue. And something about it is he was quoted as saying back in February at, I believe it was at a debate, he was quoted as saying something about, that abortion is a states' rights issue, and the U.S. Supreme Court got it wrong with Roe v. Wade because it's actually a states' rights issue. Matt, if you ever see this, please know that the government has no rights. States have no rights. Please look again at that 10th Amendment, because the 9th and 10th Amendments talk about our rights as people, right? And then specific powers that are delegated from us, from we the people, to state or federal governments. So not only does government not have rights, but government only has the powers that we delegate specifically to it. And that starts with Article 4, Section 4, that Republican form of government that we're guaranteed. Again, let's go back to the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And what about that Republican form of government? Well, okay, so we're guaranteed that in the U.S. Constitution. And that means we elect representatives to serve us in government, but we retain the ultimate control and authority. So government cannot act. And I know I've been saying this, well, in pretty much, hopefully if I've done my job right, I've been saying this in every single episode since we started this official podcast this year. But this is stuff we need to remember, because when you're dealing with your local city, when you're dealing with your county or your township, when you're dealing with an ordinance, or you want to put signs in your yard and you're told by your township that you have too many signs in your yard and they're going to, issue you citations. Yes, that has happened. And yes, I was asked for legal advice on that just this year. In fact, I need to check with that person to see how things turned out. But anyway, we need to remember that whether you're dealing with state government, local government, federal government, it doesn't matter. We need to remember that government, no matter how seemingly powerful and unstoppable, they cannot act unless there is a specific power granted by the Constitution that enables that action. So government is also then prohibited from doing anything that violates the U.S. or state constitutions. And of course, every single government official is sworn to the oath of office, the constitutional oath. What does that mean? Well, they have to acknowledge that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Again, this means that no federal law, no state constitution, no court order, no government action, no executive order, no memorandum, no recommendation from the CDC, nothing can be repugnant to the Constitution. If it is, then it is void on its face. Void on its face. So, all right. Iterate that all public officials, all elections officials are required to take that constitutional oath of office. Again, that's U.S. Constitution Article 6, or you could go to, for Michigan Constitution Article 11, Section 1, or MCL 15.151. You could look at Florida Statutes 112.311, just some of the places that constitutional oath exists. So, what the U.S. Constitution says about elections, I put into here, but essentially, we have I wanted to give you the background for what our Constitution says about who gets to call elections, who gets to be the ones in charge of those, who gets to make temporary appointments until elections are held, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to go over the specifics here, but this will be available to you in the slideshow that will be shared with you in the description of Thursday's Constitution segment recap. Those pieces aren't anything that you really need to know in specifics and have memorized before Thursday by next Tuesday, election day, by any chance. But just information I wanted to give you. Here's a big one though. If you ever hear about an election case, then with like the U.S. Supreme Court, they're going to talk a lot about time, place, and manner. So the U.S. Constitution says that the time, place, and manner of elections for senators and representatives, so Congress, is supposed to be decided by the legislature of that state, okay? Not the Secretary of State, They can't delegate those decisions to the Secretary of State. No, the time, the place, and the manner has to be put into writing, put into place by the legislature of each state. However, Congress did reserve the ability to make or alter those kinds of regulations. I don't know why, but maybe someday we'll have an episode about that. So, okay, the election is coming up. We've been talking about all these topics. Just want to reiterate to you, elections are huge. They're interwoven into the very fiber of state constitutions. Just look at Michigan and Florida as examples. The word election is in Florida, the Florida Constitution, 124 times. And the word election is in the Michigan State Constitution 105 times. This is a big deal, guys. This is stuff we need to really be paying attention to. And of course, if we're ever talking about elections, I'm going to try to remind you of how excited I was the day that we moved down here officially and registered to vote. I'm standing there in the government office, signing all their electronic forms and whatnot to register to vote. And I'm seeing that it says, I do solemnly swear that I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Florida, and that I am qualified to register as an elector under the Constitution and the laws of the state of Florida. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So every single voter in Florida, you can't say, well, I don't know. I don't know how the Constitution works. I don't know about the law, whatever. That's somebody else's problem. No, if you have any office whatsoever here, you can hold those offices if you're a registered voter, right? Well, if you're a registered voter, then you've already taken the oath of office. You don't have to wait till you're in government to have taken the oath. So even more so, why every single person, I was going to say man, woman, and child, but man, woman, and children at least 18 years of age or older have all taken the oath down here just simply by registering to vote. Anyway, I love that part. It's my favorite. Also, I'm going to put in here or leave in here some things that I have shared with you in prior weeks about Florida elections and Michigan elections, just pieces of state law. So this is Watchers at the Polls. This is a quote right from Florida Statute 101.131 about how you can be a watcher at the polls, because guys, it takes a whole team to make sure that our election integrity, whether you're in Michigan, Florida, California, Texas, New York, it doesn't matter. Even the states that are called free, like Florida, they need to have people watching every move. Even if you supposedly have Republicans in all those positions at state and local levels, you still need to keep a watchful eye. Stuff happens, and even people with the R behind their name do bad things. So, want to jump over to comments, make sure I am catching everything. We have Beverly, who's on Facebook with us today. Hello, Beverly. She says, let me figure this out here. She says, don't vote straight ticket alone without filling in all the candidates. I would say, if I understand what she's saying, she's reiterating what I was saying earlier, that, choose each candidate. Really look at your ballot wisely. This week on Freedom Fighting Tools, I will make sure to reshare with you the way to get your ballot in Florida, in Michigan, and in all other states, and be able to really see what's coming down the pike for you when you walk into that polling precinct. And so you can know what proposals are on there, what candidates are on there. A lot of them you already know. A race for governor, if your state has one this year, which most of you do, but if your state has one this year, then chances are good that you already know who the candidates are and who you're likely to vote for. But there's all kinds of other races. In fact, there's ones that I didn't even realize were on my ballot until I prepared for this episode. And I've been researching and doing, preparations election-wise, basically all year long as things have developed. But the information down here, quite frankly, is overwhelming and confusing about elections. And it's frustrating. Hopefully I could do something about that at some point in the future, but at this point we will just continue with what we've got. So again, voter challenges, just something I want to highlight in a way that I've never highlighted before. If you are in any state look for the law that you have. This was our Way to Get Involved challenge, actually, last week or the week before, was to find out how you can challenge, make a challenge. If you see something wrong on election day, what can you specifically, you do about it? Who is a non-attorney, probably not a politician, somebody who's, just kind of maybe I'll say just waking up to the fact that this freedom fight is real and it's serious and it's on your doorstep. You are an average person, right? You're a homemaker or a school teacher or an accountant or whatever, right? So what tools do you have? Well, in Florida, here is the law that you would look at. Again, other states have these too, so please find yours if you didn't already do that Way to Get Involved challenge we shared with you last week or the week before. But voter challenges, this is an example. Any registered elector, so any registered voter, may challenge the right of a person to vote in that county. So if you know for some reason you see somebody at the polls that you know is not registered to vote there, or maybe you saw them vote already that day. Maybe you were there volunteering earlier and you came back to vote for yourself or something of that kind. You went earlier by yourself, you came back with your spouse and you're just kind of hanging back. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I saw that person vote earlier. They're voting twice. Then you have the right to raise a concern. And this is the statute that you'd want to read. It's not very long. Look, guys, it's super short. But you can do your part. So what does Florida law say about elections? Well, Florida law says a lot. But again, these are just some pieces I wanted to re-share with you. So you could see the statutes in this presentation that will be shared, PowerPoint that will be shared on Thursday. I can't even think of days of the week. The laws about public inspection of ballots, poll worker recruitment and training, maintenance of good order at the polls. That's a huge one. Who's allowed to be in the polling rooms and early voting areas, etc. You need to know those. At least read them to protect your own rights, as well as to just know kind of what's more right or not when you're seeing something. Also wanted to point out to you that it is, in Michigan, we're looking at Article 2, Section 4, subsection 2 of the state constitution when it comes to who is supposed to really enact those regulations to protect the integrity of the election process. And the state constitution of Michigan clearly says it's the legislature. It's not the Secretary of State. So just some things to keep in mind because we're going to be talking about quite a few things. In fact, I wanted to give you an update. The status of that Michigan Secretary of State May 2022 manual lawsuit. The Michigan Secretary of State May 2022 election manual. Oh, look at that. In May 2022, I just really wanted to emphasize the May of 2022. I guess it's got 3 times on this page. Is not usable as it's written. That came out from Brock Swartzel in the Court of Claims last week, I believe it was. There is an appeal currently pending, and my friend Patrick Kolbeck that came on the show recently to describe what was happening in that case did tell me that they were able to get their side of things filed with the court, I believe with the Court of Appeals at this point, and other people are trying to join in and file as amicus. So anyway, at this point though, Judge Swartzel's opinion and order is still binding. And so if you go, in fact, let me tell you this, when I was looking today, preparing for which freedom fighting tools I was going to share with you on Friday, I went back and I looked at a few of those election resources I had shared with you throughout the year already. And I clicked on 2 of them that I thought, ooh, there's pieces of this that would be really helpful to share with you this week before the election. When I did that, they no longer opened the thing that they opened back in May and in April. They now link to this very document I'm showing you the little snippet of here, the appointment rights and duties of election challengers and poll watchers. This May 2022 election manual, somebody's on it over there. Those evil people are on top of things. They have found all those links that led to all these other actually helpful resources, which I was surprised because I could tell by looking at them they had been done by prior secretaries of state. They had not been done by Jocelyn Benson. And at any rate, they were finally found, even though she's been in office, since 2018, they were finally taken down and replaced. The links still work, but now those links will bring you to this very manual, the one that is not enforceable at all. Anyway, in this slideshow, you will see those 5 main points of what the judge said as to basically how this manual gets it wrong and what the actual law of those particular issues is. We don't need to re-go over those again today, but just wanted to let you know that, again, the legal effect of this manual is that this May 2022 manual is not binding on any Michigan citizen, including election challengers. That's all you need to really remember. So now I want to roll into those statewide proposals. Again, we had the full discussions in the weeks and in some cases months prior to now on all of these topics until the very end, and I'll tell you which ones we hadn't really touched on yet, but these ones we have. So we're going to go through quick. Florida Proposal 1 to amend the state constitution. I guess let me pause real quick to see. Hello to Renee on YouTube. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you doing that. Please feel free to share. By the way, all of you on Facebook or Twitter, if you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, DLive, you name it, please hit that share and like button. If you're not already subscribed to that particular page, please go ahead and hit that subscribe and notification button if that particular platform has that. That will definitely help so that you know when we're on sharing information, which hopefully at this point you've noticed at 44 weeks into this official podcast being started, that we've gotten a lot better about how we're organized and how our segments are put together and how our website is put together and how all the information is going to be much more streamlined and easy to navigate, to find what you need to find. Because at this point, I have hundreds of videos from 2020, 2021, and now going into 2022. So do notice that you're going to want to catch on to that now, plug into our resources, especially our website. Guys, that's going to be the best way to do that is to go to restorefreedomkh.com, especially that updates tab. That thing changes every single day, sometimes several times a day, because we're constantly putting new updates out there. But you can even use the search bar at the top of the website, type in, oh, I know there was a video that she did on abortion and I really wanted to watch that. I don't remember what it was called. Type that keyword into that search box and you will get not only every video that I've done about abortion that we've been able to put onto the website so far, but you'll get all the other posts and freedom fighting tools, way to get involved challenges, things like that on that particular topic. So please feel free to use that website just like that. It's meant to be super user-friendly and easy to navigate at this point. So anyway, all right, and thank you, the Liberty Cause, for joining us today on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Florida Proposal 1 to amend the state constitution. Again, we've already gone over these, so I'm just going to tell you the official summary that will appear on the ballot. This is proposing an amendment to the state constitution effective January 1st, 2023, to authorize the Florida State Legislature by general law to prohibit the consideration of any change or improvement made to real property used for residential purposes, so at your home, if you're making improvements to your property to improve the property's resistance to flood damage in determining the assessed value. So to make sure that your property taxes don't skyrocket because you've done improvements to make sure when the next Hurricane Ian comes, that flood damage is minimal. This is a huge yes for me. It is not something that serves a special interest group, and it doesn't limit any rights of the people. It applies across the board, and it is something that will definitely help when people, quite frankly, in all income brackets, but especially those in lower or middle income brackets, are then trying to repair what has happened already in this hurricane season and trying to prepare and going forward into, the upcoming months and then next year's hurricane season, trying to find ways to mitigate their future losses. They don't want to be then taxed exponentially on those very improvements. It's hard enough to come up with the funds to do the repairs or, the mitigation in the first place. So this is a big yes from me. All right, Florida Proposal 2 to amend the state constitution. This is getting rid of the Constitution Revision Commission, which is set to meet at 20-year intervals. It met in 2017. It's not set again to meet until 2037. But this is the Constitution Revision Commission meets every 20 years to propose amendments or revisions to the state constitution that, get proposed to the voters that make it on the ballot. This amendment does not affect the ability to revise or amend the Florida state constitution through all the other methods or mechanisms that are already there, which include citizen initiative, which should be the thing, constitutional convention, which is also something that's standard across the states, the Taxation and Budget Reform Commission, which, by the way, that one's unconstitutional, but this is only eliminating the one commission, not the other, and the Legislative Joint Resolution. Now, the Legislative Joint Resolution is actually how all three of this year's Florida constitutional proposals got on the ballot this year. So at any rate, so it doesn't change any of that. It simply is eliminating the Constitution Revision Commission, which is good because that's unconstitutional to begin with. Why? Because, well, let me just fast forward to the main point. It violates a Republican form of government because the people on those boards are not elected by us, by we the people. They are exercising some sort of power or authority, even in making recommendations to put things onto the ballot that, and they're disconnected from the voters. They're put onto that board by other people who are elected. So again, yes, this is a huge yes for me to vote yes on Florida Proposal 2 to eliminate the Constitution Revision Commission. Now, Florida Proposal 3 to amend the state constitution. This is the one that sounds great on the surface. This is the one where they want to amend the state constitution to allow there to be a state law that grants additional homestead exemption status to classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, corrections officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, child welfare services professionals, active duty members of the U.S. Armed Forces, and Florida National Guard members. And this would take place January. So the thing is, just because something, in fact, I should have grabbed the quote from Judge Brock Swartzel's opinion and order that we just referenced earlier that invalidated the May 2022 manual for the Michigan elections. He said it great in there that he said something about just because something might seem like it's a great idea, it has to go through the proper channels before it can actually become a law. And in this case, this might sound like a great idea, but the proper channels actually indicate this can't ever become a law. Why? Well, the biggest reason is, first of all, government's main purpose and responsibility is to protect our God-given liberties so that me and the exercise of my rights does not impede on your exercise of your rights. And so with that being said, what does this Florida Prop 3 do when it's allowing this special carve-out property homestead exemption for certain people? How does that serve this main purpose to protect all of our rights? Well, it doesn't. And not only that, but there's a huge equal protection violation. And just pointing you quickly to the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Article 1, Section 2 of the Florida State Constitution, that it's not equally protecting all of our rights as citizens and residents of Florida, that it's discriminating and only helping or benefiting certain specified classes for no legally legitimate purpose. Just because it sounds like a good idea doesn't mean it's constitutional. All right, so let me take a, in fact, Our friend here, the Liberty Cause, summed that up quite nicely. And I just wanted to check in with the comments and make sure I'm not, oh, this is always a good one. All right, so, and then we have this question here from Facebook. Catherine, voting no on Prop 1 in Michigan because I don't like how the term limits are set. I'm wondering if Restore Freedom would be interested in taking the initiative to make 2 new petitions to separate term limits to something better and the transparency of funds and get each of those on the election next ballot. For those of you who know that I mean, Restore Freedom it started as the Restore Freedom Initiative because in May of 2020, I wrote the Restore Freedom Initiative constitutional amendment petition that would have made it onto this very ballot had we not been sabotaged by other supposed grassroots members and had all of our state shut down at that time by the current governor, who better be ousted next week. But at any rate, so I ran that out of my house in Hudsonville. I didn't have any paid staff. I just had several different volunteers that as needs changed or life things changed or, health needs came up or babies were born or marriages or divorces were happening, whatever was happening, that volunteers were coming and going. And it was a huge burden on me and my family. But my house here is a quarter of the size of my last house in Michigan that was in Hudsonville, housing all of those petitions, and you wouldn't believe the amount of square footage needed for volunteers to be able to go through and verify signatures or the storage and preparing of petitions as they come off the press from the printer and then are shipped out through drivers and whatnot. I certainly couldn't do much of a coordination physically from Florida while that would have to be something done in Michigan. But what I can tell you is that I would be more than willing to at least work with people that want to be the boots on the ground. I'd be more than willing to be the constitutional or legal expertise, even possibly writing the entire thing or reviewing it or working with others on it, whatever the case may be. I just physically can't be the boots on the ground, coordinating the whole, all the logistics. But please touch base with us about other things. In fact, I've often wondered if anybody out there right now, if you're in Michigan or quite frankly, even if you're in another state, I'm hoping that someday somebody's going to pick up that Restore Freedom Initiative petition that I wrote in 2020 and yeah, you're going to have to send it to the printer to have, some dates and things like that updated, but bring it back in front of the people, get the signatures needed, and get that petition submitted so it could go on the next general election ballot. Because if you don't like government chaos and tyranny and government officials breaking the law every single day and getting away with it, and how government just stands up for itself and, hardly anybody's ever held accountable and our system is in shambles, if you don't like any of that, if you love your individual liberties and your freedom, the Restore Freedom Initiative petition literally fixes and addresses all of that. It truly brings the power back to the people. It solidifies things like freedom of information and open meetings and access to information, as well as standing. Some of those hurdles that the courts like to keep the people out of the court, out from lawsuits and things to try to stop the government from doing wrong. Oh, you lack standing. No, it essentially clears up all of that standing garbage that has been used wrongly throughout the years to keep the people out and holding their government accountable. And it says that the people do have standing to hold their government accountable and stop the violations of the Constitution and of those oaths of office. So I would love to work with some groups, whether it be in Michigan, because that one's already, 99% done, or starting it live in some other context in a different state to stop the insanity and get some true government accountability. All right, so let's see. Checking in on YouTube now. Why do you support citizen petitions put to the ballot? This is not reminiscent of a republic. It allows for mob rule. Not a fan. I'm okay with, I'm going to share this with you. I'm okay with citizen petitions vetted, approved by the legislature. In general, and this is from Stephanie on YouTube, what she's saying is talking about, really goes to the main core of petitions, citizen petitions, making it to the ballot. And she's saying, well, really the only things that she would think of is that if a citizen wanted to start a petition or a group wanted to start a petition, great, but before it makes it to the ballot, the legislature should have to approve of it. The only thing is that what we saw, for example, in 2020 was that every state legislature, every single one got it wrong, even the Republican-controlled ones, certainly in Michigan. They sat by idly on their hands and initially just let the governor walk all over and just do whatever she wanted. And then when they started finally doing things and holding sessions and taking votes, they voted on things like, for those of you who don't know, look up House Bill from 2020 in Michigan, State House Bill 5672. Senate Bill 858. Senate Bill 858 from 2020. Senate Bill 858. It literally codified, I think it was 37 or 38 of the then currently existing executive orders. It literally took the entire order and said, okay, this one's law. So they claim that they were trying to stop or fight against what Whitmer was doing, but at the time, she was only up to, I want to say, Executive Order 58, 57 maybe. And they literally, in one foul swoop on April 30th, 2020, the Republican-led legislature, the Senate and the House, all voted, majority of the legislature in Michigan voted to codify and make law more than half of Whitmer's executive orders. The only reason why those did not become law is because Whitmer herself did a press conference that night saying how that was blatantly unconstitutional because they violated the state constitution in a variety of ways with this bill on how they put it together. And she was right. I was so thankful that Whitmer was calling them out because she was actually going to get her way. She was going to get more than half of her executive orders in one foul swoop made into state law by the Republican-led legislature in Michigan. Are those the kind of people that we want approving or disapproving of citizen initiatives before they go on the ballot? I don't think so. But anyway, that's kind of one example of why I distrust the legislatures as well. But Stephanie, you have a very good point there, and something we've talked about in episodes prior about ballots, and certainly we'll keep talking about it. And please do bring that up on future episodes as well. Let's see here. I'm just going to follow up. We have Haley back over on Facebook well, thank you. She was thanking me for what I was doing with Restore Freedom, and she wants to see something happen with some of the things that are actually in, for example, Michigan Proposal 1, but doesn't like the current way that proposal is worded and wanted some help. And yes, please touch base with us. We can definitely work together. Okay. And all right, I think we're doing good on comments. If you have said something or asked me a question and I somehow missed it on one of the social media platforms here, I'm sorry. I'm doing my very best to keep up with those. But the best way is if you're on YouTube or our Facebook page and commenting live right now, I'm able to keep track of those a bit better. So anyway, with Florida Proposal 3, again, that is a big fat no. Florida Prop 3 vote no, because it's not a back the blue or, support the teachers kind of situation. This is an equal protection violation and something that goes way outside of the bounds of what the purpose of government is in the first place. Please vote no if you are in Florida on Proposal 3. So Michigan Proposal 1, that was the one that our friend Haley on Facebook was just asking about. Michigan Proposal 1 to amend the Michigan State Constitution. That's the one that is seeking term limits and also financial reporting for candidates in the legislature and whatnot. We talked about this in depth 2-3 weeks ago. I don't remember now. But the answer is no. Please vote no on Michigan Prop 1. It's not that term limits are bad. Term limits are amazing and necessary. But please check out that earlier episode that goes into why this is actually bad news. It's unconstitutional. This would violate the U.S. Constitution, among other things, if it was added to the Michigan state constitution. So then going to Michigan Proposal 2 to amend the state constitution. This is the voter ID one, absentee ballots, having the state pay for all the postage to send everybody absentee ballots for life, and then being able to return them, yada, yada, millions and millions of dollars that the state would be taking on. Yes, your tax dollars. Have fun with that one. But anyway, Michigan Prop 2 is a big fat no. There are many, many problems with that. Let's just say the most creative imagery that would go along with that is you're stopping Zuckerbucks affecting the polls by voting no on this. So vote no, vote against Zuckerberg on Tuesday in Michigan by voting no on Prop 2. Also, just another note about that voting on a yes vote on Prop 2 takes away power from the people and the legislature to ensure the integrity of our elections, since only the Secretary of State would be allowed to audit the elections run by that very Secretary of State. Yes, auditing yourself is always what's best. All right, so, yes, I forgot. That was the initial emoji I used when I talked about that months ago, and it was, well, every time I see that in my slides, I'm like, yep, that's how I feel about the whole thing and why people need to vote no on it. Okay, so Michigan's Proposal 3 to amend the Constitution. This is the one the left is arguing is just putting Roe v. Wade back in place for the state of Michigan and securing abortion rights. No, it does many, many things. So let's say you're pro-life. First of all, that's all you need to hear is that this is the anti-life Prop 3, so vote a big fat no on this. But even if you're pro-choice, you should be against Prop 3. We went into that in like 4 different, at least 4 hours of conversations about it in episode 39, episode 40, talking about this. It's ugly. And as you can see on the screen here, this I do have the official summary of Prop 3 for Michigan in the, the actual language of that, right in the slideshow that you will access more readily on Thursday. But Prop 3 is blatantly unconstitutional and receives the big Restore Freedom red X because it allows abortion on demand of babies born and unborn. I heard a commercial on Joy 99 from this morning. I do listen to Joy 99 from West Michigan yet. I love technology these days. But anyway, it was the Joy 99 radio station that was actually sponsoring this commercial. And I've missed who the woman is that's actually talking in it or what organization she's from or if she works at Joy 99. But anyway, she's going through what Prop 3 does or doesn't do and trying to clear some of that up. And she doesn't get it quite right. I mean, she's in the right direction. But one thing she says is that Prop 3 would allow abortions almost right up until the moment of birth. Wrong. Prop 3 would allow an abortion at birth. In fact, Prop 3 would allow an abortion after birth. This Prop 3 specifically mentions postpartum in there, and the whole concepts of abortion, sterilization, postpartum, and whether you want to parent or don't want to parent. That's the whole reason why they're there. And so, at any rate, that is one of the big things about Prop 3 in Michigan. Also, it prohibits licensing or regulation of abortion, sterilization, sex changes, infertility care, which this commercial on Joy 99 actually does a good job about pointing out. Third is that it prohibits us from protecting our own children from having sterilizations, sex change procedures, contraceptives, abortion, or sex with pedophiles. We can't do that if Prop 3 goes into place. Well, let me tell you, the Second Amendment and Other things that I enjoy, like my right to parent my own children, even if I were in Michigan, Second Amendment's going to help me put, pedophiles and all those other people in place if they think they're going to harm my children. I don't care what a state constitutional amendment says. Nobody's going to hurt my babies. But don't make it hard for those people who can't take on that fight or don't know how to take on that fight to protect their own children. It allows parents to abandon their children. Literally, the States and Protected Individuals Code and the abuse and neglect cases in Michigan are going to. I've been a guardian ad litem representing. I've been a lawyer guardian ad litem. I've been just a guardian ad litem. I've been attorney for children in those kinds of cases, in ugly divorce cases, in abuse and neglect cases. I've worked with kids in the special education realm. You name it. I've worked, if you talk about child welfare, it's fair to say I'm an expert in the law in at least 2 different states on all those different aspects and types of things. And it would completely, Prop 3 would completely unwrite abuse and neglect. And maybe there could be some crazy arguments made that legally, if that were put into place, then no abuse or neglect case could ever be filed. No criminal charges, not even the civil case, so that you can get children out and into safe homes. And of course, for those of you who are just those fiscal conservatives, like Americans for Prosperity or whatnot, that don't necessarily fight for those other freedom issues, what about the fact that Prop 3 requires the state of Michigan and its taxpayers to pay for all of those bad things that Prop 3 entails? The paycheck, the bill is sent to the taxpayers to pay for all of it. So I want to roll back to where we were for episode 41, talking about state Supreme Court justices. Remember, 30 states are holding elections for state Supreme Court this year. In fact, 85 of the 344 current state Supreme Court justices are up for election. That's 25%. A quarter of all state Supreme Court justices are up for election this year. That's big. A lot of you like the graphics and whatnot. So for those of you currently able to see the screen and not just listening on one of our podcasting platforms, or just listening at work via YouTube or Rumble or something like that, I do have the slide here that talks about, in color format, the indication of how many state Supreme Court justices are up for election this year all across the U.S. So you can just have a quick look at where your state is and go, oh, okay, or which neighboring states have a lot. Texas is one of them that has a lot of them up for election this year, etc. Florida is one of the darker colors, Tennessee. But anyway, this is available in the slideshow that will be shared on Thursday. So again, just a brief review that the judicial selection methods, say that 3 times fast, I could hardly get through it the first time, but there are 6 primary judicial selection methods in the United States: partisan elections, nonpartisan elections, a third one that's literally called the Michigan method because it's so stupid that nobody else wants to do it. The assisted appointment, gubernatorial appointment, and legislative elections. So all 6 different ways we have talked about in depth before. And just a reminder, you have the partisan elections, nonpartisan elections, Michigan method, and retention elections that are all, when you talk about judicial elections, the first 3 on there are talking about, can be talking about the initial selection of a judge or state Supreme Court justice. But the 4th one is a retention election that is only used when you have, for example, in Florida, the governor selecting the state Supreme Court justices. Well, then there is a retention election that is used after they've been in office every so often. So that retention election is why you'll see, so both Michigan and Florida, for example, let's give you hard and fast numbers that help you understand this. Both courts have 7 state Supreme Court justices. Michigan, they serve 8-year terms. Florida, it's 6-year terms. And then Michigan, it's a convoluted, complicated process, but it's supposedly nonpartisan elections, right? That'll be on the ballot on Tuesday, but those candidates are placed there from the individual parties. So the Republican Party picked 2 at their state convention. The Democrat Party picked 2 candidates. Anyway. In Florida, however, you have that Judicial Nominating Commission, which is 9 members, that they are appointed by the governor for 4-year terms. Well, that Judicial Nominating Commission submits between 3 and 6 names for the governor to choose from. And so the governor, it's not just, wide open for the governor to pick who he or she would want to be on the state Supreme Court, but it is more or less funneled by people that he put into place. Anyway, with Michigan, it's just you pick 2 out of all 5 of these candidates. So the 2 that are currently there are Richard Bernstein and Brian Zara. And then there are 3 additional candidates that are running. And so it's just the top 2 vote getters. Sometimes the incumbent doesn't win, and that is totally okay. I'm hoping one incumbent does not win. So Michigan, I'm asking you to please vote for Brian Zara. He is not just a Republican that came out of the Republican State Convention. He is one of them that, although I don't agree with him all the time, he is one of them that goes the farthest on the bench in terms of doing his due diligence and, sticking to his oath of office and remembering what government's role is and the fact that we have God-given liberties. So at any rate, please go with him. And for reasons I've talked about in the prior episodes, I'm asking you, if you're in Michigan, to cast that second vote, not for who I asked you to vote for back in 2020. And of course, we already talked about why. But Paul Hudson is the attorney that I have asked for you to vote for at this point. I do have some concerns, but at this point, I think it's the most realistic. Also, if you're in Michigan, and if you happen to be in the 3rd district for Court of Appeals selections, please make sure that you end up voting for Judge Vogt out of Ionia. I was in front of him as a public defender for a while, and he was a district court judge, so I was in front of him for a lot of other things as well. And I don't always agree with him either, and sometimes he just plain did get it wrong, but he did a phenomenal job at always trying to do what's right and following the Constitution and following the law. So I'm asking you to put your support behind Judge Vogt. Don't pass over or gloss over those other down ticket elections. You need to know who is important in each of these. All right, so I'm sorry. There's been some commenting in the chat, and I haven't been watching very recently. Let's see. Okay, so, and Renee asked earlier on Facebook, or kind of said, I don't know which judges to vote for. There are only 3 with right to life approval. I'm not voting for any of the others. So I think your 3, which you later said are the 3 that I was talking about. I did not realize they had the right to life vote, or support, I should say. But at any rate, if you had any additional questions on other judges, I'll do my best to answer them off the top of my head, but it's possible I'm not going to know who they are, or, that I can't remember. Like, I've been in front of Judge Feeney before. I've been involved in many of her cases. That's the person running against Judge Vogt for that Court of Appeals spot. And I simply don't remember if Judge Feeney generally had good decisions or bad decisions on cases. I should be able to remember that, but I've been in front of countless judges in different states throughout the years. So anyway, just a reminder that with retention elections, as we start to then look at the Florida Supreme Court candidates, state Supreme Court candidates, that you remember that each judge that's currently on there is listed by themselves, and you're voting, yes or no, but the vote is, should we keep them? Because if a majority of people say, no, we shouldn't keep this judge, the process starts over. They're out, and Governor DeSantis has to put somebody new in. Now, what's interesting is that these 5 justices, only 5 of the 7 are up for re-election or retention election this year. 3 of them, Kennedy, Polston, and Labarga, and I probably totally destroyed pronunciation of each of those last names, each of those were technically put into place by a Republican governor. However, that very same Republican governor is now running against Ron DeSantis as the Democrat challenger. Yes, Christ was the Republican who appointed each of those first 3 that are on the list. And so only 2 are up for re-election this year that have been put onto the bench by Ron DeSantis. So Charles Kennedy, I think is how you pronounce his name, he was put into place by Governor Charlie Crist in 2008. I'm asking you to vote no against him for a variety of reasons. Same with Ricky Polston, put into place in 2008 by Charlie Crist. Put into place in 2009 by Charlie Crist was Jorge Labarga. Again, I'm probably slaughtering that name pronunciation, and for that I'm sorry. But let me put it this way. With this guy, abortion rights advocates are urging voters to reject all of the Supreme Court justices that are up for re-election or retention election this year, except for him. Because even though he was supposedly a Republican, he's a huge abortion rights advocate. If nothing else, could you use that as your reason to vote no on that guy? So again, John Coriel was put into place in 2020 by Ron DeSantis, and Jamie Rutland Groshans was appointed by DeSantis in 2020 as well. And she's not even rated by Ballotpedia at this point because she hasn't been in place long enough. But I'm asking you to vote yes on retaining both of them. And again, that is Justice John Coriel and Justice Groshans. Please vote yes to retaining both of those. For governor, there are 4 candidates in Florida. I think you probably can understand why, but Ron DeSantis is my pick. I didn't mean to use a lowercase s there on his name, but at any rate, I'm asking you to vote against the former Republican, supposed Republican, Charlie Crist. And the Libertarian candidate and the No Party candidate have not done very much. It's not that it's, just a Republican that's there, or even, hey, it's Ron DeSantis, I'm going to vote for him any day of the week. Okay, in general, but he hasn't been perfect. So, yes, I did look into these other ones, and yes, I would still vote for Ron DeSantis, and I'm asking you to do that as well. Now, in this situation, for Florida Attorney General, you have Ashley Moody, who is the Republican, and the Democrat, I'm not even going to try to say her name. I'm pretty sure it was a female. Yes, I'm pretty sure it was a female. Because I don't want to, I'm not going to say it right. But at any rate, I am asking you to consider voting for Ashley Moody because I believe she would do a much better job as state attorney general. And Florida, there's a CFO that you vote for in Florida, the chief financial officer. I'm asking you to vote for Jimmy Patronis, who is in fact the Republican running. In Florida, there's a Commission of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Yes, that is a thing down here, and that's something you vote for. I'm asking for you to vote for Wilton Simpson. Sounds kind of wimpy, I'm going to be honest. But anyway, I'm going to ask you to vote for Wilton Simpson for that position. Michigan Attorney General. I want to talk about that, but let's take a brief pause because I want to touch base with Chris Ann Baker. I agree that Prop 3 is not well written since the word individual is not defined and or qualified with the words, this proposal does not apply to minors. it does apply to minors. They're intending it to apply to minors. They are, what did I see recently? Well, let me, actually, it was an episode of Grey's Anatomy. But if you want to think about, no, Grey's Anatomy was not written around the concept of specifically Michigan's Prop 3, but I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago, the Grey's Anatomy episode was all about, I mean, I've been watching the show for 19 years. I just don't want to let it go. But it was in your face, all about sex and abortion and everything, and young minors being there. And they're talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned and how it was just a travesty for children and women and everything else. And oh my goodness. But some of the very examples that they were using as scenes in that show from a week or two ago on Grey's Anatomy are some of the very same situations that you'll see in some of those videos I shared with you a couple weeks ago. One was the Catholic Church of Michigan. Don't remember the exact naming, but anyway, the Catholic Church in Michigan put out this video on Prop 3, and I think the title of it is I Didn't Know, because people don't know all of what Prop 3 really has in it. So at any rate, yes, the Grey's Anatomy episode has some of the exact same examples used, but to show you the common sense side of things. Oh my gosh, do you really want your minor children going through that alone and having these people doing these procedures for them or onto them or whatever? So yes, Prop 3 does, if it gets passed through, they fully intend on it applying to minors. And then where in the wording of Prop 3 does it state that abortions are funded by the state? Okay, so we're gonna, you know what, Chris Ann, you have very important questions on that. Let me finish rolling through super fast the rest of these candidates, and we'll come back to these questions because they're going to take me longer. Your questions are going to take me longer than the rest of these, and I was trying to get right on an hour for going through these other ones. So please don't go away. I will definitely answer your very good questions there. Okay, so let's see. Oh, yeah, awesome. So as I have the Wilton Simpson thing on the screen here, my friend the Liberty Cause tells me that Wilton Simpson went against almost everything Ron DeSantis wanted to get done. DeSantis was basically extorted into endorsing him, and that is a shame. The unfortunate aspect is that I think this Wilton Simpson is still going to do a better job than the Democrat candidate. So that is unfortunately the state of things right now. But Michigan Attorney General. So Matt DePerno, I definitely have my concerns about his ability to truly prosecute things and handle the state's matters as AG from a constitutional perspective. But will he do a better job than Dana Nessel? Absolutely. And let's be honest, Gerald T. Van Sickle never even knew that he was running until I researched for this episode. If I didn't know that as an attorney, as someone who I have been in the U.S. Taxpayers Party of Michigan, which is the Constitution Party before, I know the people that are officers of the U.S. Taxpayers Party. I know the president and the secretary and the treasurer. And at any rate, if I didn't even know this person was running, they're not working hard to get their name out there, and they're not going to win at this point. I'm not one of those people that wants to say, oh, you always have to go with the person that's made the most money. No, because some people just get boots on the ground, and I made by far the least money, I think. I raised the least amount of money in my campaign when I ran for state rep years and years ago. And I had, there were three of us that were right at the top with each other, and then there were other two candidates that were much farther down in the number of votes cast. At any rate, I was right at the top there, did not win, but I by far had the least amount of resources to work with. So at any rate, money doesn't, that's just an example, but money doesn't mean everything there. Now, here's this last person I didn't mention, Joe McHugh. I didn't know maybe he did tell me he was running. I don't think I knew he was running. He actually ran for president in 2020. And he was actually, if you Google the fifth seat or go to YouTube and search for the fifth seat, go to my own YouTube channel and search for the fifth seat, you will see the episodes. I think only the first season aired, but my friend Christina Carrello, that's where I met her, and that's where I met Joe McHugh. We were all pulled in by our friend Patrick Colbeck, who wanted to get this basically reality talk show about politics up and running, and we had some great episodes. It was good, but at any rate, my friend Joe here, you can just watch some of those episodes that air, and I think Joe has a good heart. I think he in general has a good desire to support and defend the U.S. Constitution. He may even do a better job than Matt DePerno would, but at this point, I didn't even realize Joe was running. If I didn't realize that, and I know him personally, I could say I know him better than I know Matt DePerno. If I didn't even know he was running, what are the odds that 7 million voters in Michigan know that he's running and would be willing to stick their neck out, so to speak, and vote for that off-brand candidate than to stick with one of the two main party candidates? So at any rate, for that reason, unfortunately, I think we want Matt DePerno to be your choice. Tudor Dixon is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of 6 candidates running for Michigan governor. Do I think that she is the best choice here? Yes, I actually do. Do I think she is going to defend the Constitution at all costs and do what she's really supposed to do? No. Do I think if she's governor, I will end up having to file lawsuits against her because she's going to screw things up? Yes, unfortunately, based on what she's been saying on the campaign trail. Yeah. She would have no problem enforcing Prop 3 if it gets voted through, even though it violates the U.S. Constitution, and a variety of other problems go along with that. But at any rate, she's still nonetheless the one that I think would do the best out of the choices that you have there. And I know a lot of you, at least some of you, are throwing your support behind the U.S. Taxpayers Party candidate, Donna Brandenburg, but I'm going to ask you to not vote for her because at this point, so close in, I don't think that she's the best candidate for the job for a variety of reasons. And it's not just because she's the third candidate, so to speak. No, I mean, I think I'll get out that a lot of the debates and whatnot, that she was kept out of those debates because the voters are being robbed of information to not, get the ability to hear what each candidate would really have to say on these important issues, but it is what it is. Okay, so Secretary of State. There are 5 candidates for Michigan Secretary of State this year. 1 from the Green Party, 1 from the Libertarian Party. Of course, Jocelyn Benson, the criminal, who's currently the Democrat in office. My friend Christina Carrello, who is the Republican nominee. And Christine Schwartz from the U.S. Taxpayers Party. I believe she's still in Jenison or Hudsonville area. But she is a wonderful person, smart, loves the Constitution. I've known her longer than I've known any of those others, but I still think Christina Carrello is better positioned and has all that it takes to do the best job as Michigan Secretary of State. So I'm going to ask you to throw your support behind Christina Carrello. 2 other candidates I want you to remember for sure. I'm not saying to not vote for the other Republicans on the rest of the ballot for statewide offices, but I can't put my support behind them publicly for a variety of reasons. Some I don't know and some I do know, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of talking negatively about them. But there's 2 I want you to remember and to vote for if you're in Michigan. That is Tammy Carlone for the MSU, that can't be right, MSU Board of Education. I think I'm losing my dang mind. That doesn't sound right now. Anyway, Tammy Carlone is on your ballot. And Lena Epstein, who's running for U of M Board of Regents. University of Michigan Board of Regents. I'm asking you to remember to vote for them. So that true or false question, only election challengers and poll watchers can file challenges or complaints about suspicious election activities. Please head over to Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, YouTube, or restorefreedomkh.com/website/updates to answer that true or false question. But of course, the answer is false, because every voter has the responsibility to keep a watchful eye and say something if you see something. The procedures vary by state on how to do it, but if all else fails, report concerns of suspicious suspicious election activity to your sheriff. Why? Because elections matter. And we need to stop the steal in 2022. So if you want any more information about this, okay, so this part, I've already done the recapping of all those, so we were pretty dang close to that hour. But before I go in and answer the specific questions I was posed on Facebook on Michigan's Prop 3, which were phenomenal questions, and we need to answer those, I wanted to first let you know, here's some more resources, which this... the resources I'm sharing with you are already things I've shared with you, but so you don't need these links. You can find them on my YouTube, Facebook, on my website, whatever, by that keyword searching we talked about, etc. But you can also wait till Thursday and get this slideshow and then be able to just click on this stuff as you see fit. But we did the full discussion of abortion and the Constitution. That episode, there's the link for it here, as well as the Constitution segment that went along with it, and the freedom fighting tools on that topic. Of course, the biblical insight on that topic. We also included the biblical insight for selecting officials, because we need to make sure we're doing things God's way, not our way of doing it, but God's way. Election integrity, I gave you some great freedom fighting tools on election integrity several weeks back. And there is the full episode on the Republican Secretary of State nominee interview when we talked with Christina Caramo. And we went over the current, had an overview of the then current Michigan petitions. A lot of information on a peripheral matter was in there. So that link for that is there. And vacancies, petitions, and more, that Constitution segment recap on that same week, as well as the Friday's freedom fighting tools on initiative petitions and Secretary of State's offices across the U.S. Those were things that we shared way back when. The Allegan election day case from when I was charged on November 3rd, 2020, this was the so-called trespass case that was finally dismissed on this July on my husband and Rachel Atwood's birthdays this year. But that episode afterwards talked a lot about election day, what your rights are, what the government can do and not do to you on election day. Similarly, we had an episode 31 talking about election day campaign reminders. We had episode 34 that talked about Michigan Lieutenant Governor and Lieutenant Governor and the state convention. That part isn't as helpful going into next week, but the Florida primary election day, the information that we covered there, a lot of it is still very helpful. And then, of course, episode 39 and 40, when we talked about the Prop 3, the abortion Prop 3 for Michigan, and the Constitution segment recap for week 40. I didn't have one for week 39, really, because unfortunately I was literally in the midst of a hurricane, a 500-year hurricane at that. So anyway, going to episode 41, we had the full discussion on the state Supreme Court justices. And then episode 42, we talked more in depth about Florida proposals 1, 2, and 3 and Michigan proposal 1 and 2. And of course, last week we talked about that new court order from Judge Brock Swartzel that protects election challengers and poll watchers. So with each of those last ones, you can find the link directly to the full episode, as well as that Constitution segment recap if you need more of that Cliff Notes version, just to refresh yourself of what we talked about those days. And of course, please check back tomorrow for our Wednesday's Way to Get Involved challenge, and on Thursday for our Constitution segment recap Friday, I already told you what our Friday's freedom fighting tools for you are going to be. Very useful, no matter what state you are in. And of course, Saturday, we're going to have Rachel's video about a Restore Freedom Goodie of the Week, and Sunday's Biblical Insight will be posted as well. We look forward to having you next Tuesday for our, it's going to be about elections. And for those of you who are at home and really thinking, I don't know if I really need to vote, my vote doesn't matter, or whatever, that is going to be an episode really meant to put you into high gear and tell you why you need to vote, and come at it from a constitutional and government let's see, let's see, how do I want to do this? Give me a second, guys. I have to find where's that question? Okay, so Chris Ann Baker, hopefully you are still with us right now on Facebook, and those of you who share these questions as well. But so the question is, let's see, she had several questions in here. Let me skip to one of them. So where does it say that abortions are going to be funded by the state? Where do I have that? Hold on a second. I got to think here. Okay. Where is it? I don't have it in front of me right now. Okay. So there's 4 sections of Prop 3 for Michigan. And I don't believe it says anywhere specifically in there that the state is paying for all of it. It's not necessarily true. I would need that language. Let me, all right. I'm going to get this for you. Okay, so that was weeks 39 and 40. It'll take me just a second to get back to the information that I shared with you guys then. And okay, I think I finally found it, guys. All right, this is the notes, basically, the PDF I put together that I shared with you guys on weeks 39 and 40, talking about things. It includes the full text. So it, well, it doesn't specifically say, but what I can tell you is that they have some sort of legal arguments already up their sleeve, and it's going to be tied to subsection 1. So the question is about, where does it say the state's going to pay for this stuff? It doesn't specifically say that, but what it does say is that every individual has these fundamental rights, that it's a fundamental right. And so the argument is going to be made that because these are fundamental rights, the state has to pay for it. And with that being said, let me just point you out to, so at the bottom of the petition, not just the summary language, but at the bottom of the petition, it says provisions of existing constitution that will be altered or abrogated by the proposal if adopted. And look at what those are. And I talked about this much more fully on this topic in weeks 39 and 40, but let's take a look though. So these are the parts where they are saying, the people who wrote this are saying this petition changes these other parts of the Constitution. They just don't tell us how. So if we look to, sorry, I'm going to sneeze, guys. Oh, try not to. Okay. So I wish I could just sneeze and get on with it. Okay, so Article 4, Legislative Branch. One of them is Section 31, General Appropriations Bills. Looking at Article 5 for the executive branch, Section 18 on the budget. Let's see here. It's expected that these rights will take place in state-funded universities. Look at Article 8. They are saying that if you vote yes, Article 8, Section 5 for University of Michigan, MSU, WSU controlling boards, that they are going to be impacted by this. Prop 3, that Article 8, Section 6, the other institutions of higher education, and even Section 7, community and junior colleges, that they are also going to be impacted because they're going to be providing these services. But look at, it says specifically, the authors of this petition specifically spell out in this petition that Article 9, Finance and Taxation, Section 17, payments from state treasury, is going to be changed or modified, utilized by this Prop 3. Article 11, Public Officers and Employment, Section 5, they're also saying, and I just realized you can't see my screen, and I thought I was sharing it with you. There we go. Let me try to change the size here. Better. Sorry, guys. I thought you were able to see this. Talking about it like you can, but at any rate, so the last one here, and this is a document I've already shared with you guys, so you have access to this already. But the link for this is in the description of the Constitution segment recap from week 40 if you're looking for this. But anyway, Article 5, Public Office, Article 11, Section 5, Classified State Civil Service, and there's a section for appointments, promotions, demotions, or removals. There's also a section for appropriations. When we're talking about, when the authors of this petition are telling us that the parts of the state constitution dealing with appropriations, finance and taxation, payments from state treasury, budget, and general appropriations bills are all going to be changed when this petition, if this petition gets approved by the voters. That is saying the state is going to be paying for these services. That, along with their argument that they're going to make, mark my words, they're going to say that, well, if every individual has this fundamental right, the state has an obligation to pay for it. So that is addressing that part. But then we have Chris Ann Baker, who's also on Facebook, asking that she says, also Prop 3 does say that the state has the right to ban abortion after fetal viability occurs, which is about 20 to 22 weeks. And she says, other than the word individual, I actually don't think it's a bad thing, the government to stay out of my medical decisions. You're right. The government should stay out of your medical decisions, but you're not quite right about the caveat with fetal viability, because what it's saying there, and we're going to go back up to that. Okay, it's right here somewhere. There's not very much to it. Okay, so it says the state, and this is subdivision 1, the state may regulate the provision of abortion care after fetal viability. So number 1, it's not saying there will be fetal viability limitations. No, this would not have that. This means another step would have to be taken by the legislature. A whole new law would have to be passed before there was a limitation on fetal viability. But also, here's the big part. Provided that in no circumstance shall the state prohibit an abortion that, in the professional judgment of an attending healthcare professional, is medically indicated to protect the life or or physical or mental health of the pregnant individual. So, like we could see in one of those videos I shared with you recently, the one put out by the Catholic Church of Michigan, where I think it was entitled, I Didn't Know. they're pointing out this very aspect that you can, and they're showing a woman about to pop any minute, 40 weeks pregnant, waiting for this baby to be born, and the doctor's asking, are you going to have any stress or anxiety in caring for this child? Because if you do, then your mental health is at risk, and you can choose to abort the baby now anyway. It literally says that in here, and it doesn't even have to be a doctor. This takes away any kind of regulation for abortions, sterilizations, anything. There's no regulation. You can be somebody who walks in off the street, some thug with not even a high school education, let alone a medical degree, and if you put on a Planned Parenthood suit or even open your own abortion clinic, you can do that. You have business cards made up, and you put a sign on your front door, and you don't even have to register that business with the state of Michigan. Because this literally says if you're going to help women get abortions, you cannot have government interference with what you're doing at all. You cannot have any kind of punishments whatsoever. So you don't even have to be medically trained to do any procedures, let alone abortions. And you can assess a woman's mental health state and go, oh, well, she's about to give birth, but she looks stressed. So we're going to go ahead and perform a late-term abortion. That's literally what this part that I just read to you says. So it's about the words that they don't have in there just as much as the words that they do have in there. So I think I covered all those questions. Let me double check here that there were no additional questions. Lots of comments and things. I think we got it all. Okay. So, yes, Lori has shared with us the in the comments, at least on YouTube and Facebook, she has shared that link from the video that I've talked about a few times now. It's only 5 minutes and say 29 seconds. So clearly didn't put out by me, right? Because I do things that are longer than that. But anyway, it's a 5-minute video. Watch it. Because the situation of Prop 3 in Michigan is actually worse than what the video portrays. But the video at least gets you to that point of seeing, holy cow, that's really what Prop 3 has in it. All the legal analysis and the abstract talking about it that I've done with you or that others have been doing with you, this video makes it real and tangible and gives you, visual examples of what the heck is going to happen. So definitely take a look at that if you have any questions at all. But Prop 3 is bad. Even if you're pro-choice, this is a piece of garbage that destroys parental rights, that protects rapists and sex traffickers, and it destroys the ability of women to know that, well, sure, every other medical and health thing is over-regulated in the state of Michigan, but abortions will not be allowed to be regulated. Anybody without any medical training whatsoever who calls themselves an abortion professional is going to be allowed to perform procedures and make judgment calls that affect the lives of women and children if Prop 3 is put into place. So please keep that in mind. So with all that fun stuff being said, I want to thank you for joining us I did want to leave us on, well, whatever. I want to thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Restored Freedom Weekly, episode 44. We went over quite a few candidates, 10 candidates for state Supreme Court, 6 different constitutional proposals that are on your ballots for next week. We went through countless state attorney general candidates, secretary of state candidates, commissioners of agriculture, state board of education, you name it. They're there. I hope that you were able to get that last minute confidence in knowing who you wanted to vote for or what you wanted to vote for, so you can prepare your notes and be totally informed going into the polls on Tuesday. Sorry, apparently I was so excited that my voice doesn't work anymore. So at any rate, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and support us here at Restore Freedom so we can keep the work going. Rolling into 2023, there's a lot of legal briefs and cases that I intend to be really jumping in on, because I've been the one having to deal with all the behind the scenes background work and whatnot, the logistics that has kept me then unable to have time to do as much of the legal work as I wanted to. So hopefully I'll be able to finish getting all the rest of those logistics set up and everything throughout the rest of 2022 and coming out punches on 2023 with that fight for freedom and those legal battles. So please help to support this work. And please consider donating as well. You can go to our support tab on restorefreedomkh.com/support. You can go to restorefreedomkh.com/donate if you'd like to do that. But the support tab will lead you to all of our social media platforms, so you can like and share and subscribe, as well as to be able to purchase those few Restore Freedom items that we have for sale at cost, and to be able to donate generally to our work or to specifics like this show or the Constitution segment recap, our weekly newsletter, our website full of resources. There's a lot of ways that you can get involved and that you can help. How quickly would Prop 3 be ruled unconstitutional if it was passed? Why, Mr. Henry, did you decide to ask me that as I was literally saying goodbye to everyone? The thing is, it would not be a quick thing for that, for Prop 3 to be ruled unconstitutional. That is going to take a very long time. And depending on how it's brought to the court, each individual piece will have to be attacked separately, because if we scroll to Section 5 of the petition, it says, any provision of this section held invalid shall be severable from the remaining portions of this section, meaning if a lawsuit only challenges Section 4, for example, and the court says, okay, Section 4 is obviously unconstitutional, that's going to leave Sections 1, 2, and 3. Scary stuff, guys. It's scary stuff. So it's going to be a huge uphill battle to get the court to do what they're supposed to do and declare this unconstitutional if it does get passed. The biggest, best, baddest way that you can help stop this insanity is by voting no and helping others to know that they need to vote no on Michigan's Prop 3. So, with that being said, I think we finally have answered all the questions there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Lori's laughing at me because she's the one that posted Mr. Henry's question to the screen, so I had to answer it. Thanks, Lori. I was just going to answer him when he got home. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in the rest of our segments throughout the rest of this week and, of course, throughout the rest of this year. And God bless you in your own fight for freedom. Have a great day.